The marked alien woman. The night was heavy with smoke, and the air carried the sharp smell of metal and oil. Under the shadows of tall black towers, an auction ground stretched wide, lit by harsh blue lights. Crowds of aliens filled the stands, their faces eager, their voices loud. Waiting for the next sale, one by one, captives were dragged onto a raised platform, each body weak, each face empty. Their skins burned with glowing numbers, marks of ownership, marks of shame. Among them stood a woman, her body thin, her skin marked with strange silver lines. Her eyes were large, filled with fear. Yet there was a quiet strength hidden deep inside. The auctioneer shouted her number, his voice echoing like a hammer. Lot 42, strong, healthy, ready for service. Who will bid first? The crowd roared, some shouting prices, others laughing. To them she was not a person, only property, only a tool. But in the shadows, near the edge of the ground, one human stood still. He was a soldier, dressed in plain clothes now, his uniform left behind after the war. His eyes were sharp, his jaw tense, as he watched the scene unfold. He had seen many battles, many cruelties, but this cut deeper than any wound. Because the woman on the platform trembled not with weakness, but with silent dignity, and something inside him refused to let her story end as another slave's tale. The auctioneer raised his hand, his voice louder. 100 credits, who bids more? Hands shot up, voices clashed, prices rose. The woman closed her eyes, her breath uneven, her hands trembling against the chains. She could already see her future sold to a cruel master. Forced into endless pain, hope seemed far away, lost forever. But then the human stepped forward, his voice calm yet powerful. 1,000 credits, he said, cutting through the noise like thunder. The crowd fell silent, every eye turning toward him. The auctioneer blinked in shock, then smiled greedily. No one offered higher, no one dared, for his tone carried not just wealth, but defiance. The hammer struck. Sold to the human. Gasps and whispers filled the air. Some laughed, saying the human was foolish. Others frowned, sensing trouble. For why would a human, a warrior, waste his gold on a fragile alien woman? The soldier ignored them all, his eyes never leaving her. He walked up the platform, his boots echoing against the metal floor. The guards unlocked her chains, roughly pushing her forward. She nearly fell. But the human caught her gently, holding her steady. For the first time, she felt a hand that did not harm, but protect. Her eyes lifted to meet his. Wide and uncertain, she whispered in her own tongue, words broken but filled with fear. Why? Why you saved me? The human did not answer right away. He only looked at her. And in his gaze she saw no ownership, no greed. Only something she had not seen in years: kindness. Finally, he said, because you are not property. His voice was steady, quiet, but it struck her heart like fire. The crowd jeered, some shouting curses. This human has lost his mind, one alien spat. He loves his pity games, another mocked. But the soldier did not care. He wrapped his jacket around her trembling shoulders. He guided her through the crowd, ignoring the stares and the whispers behind them. The blue lights of the auction ground burned like cruel stars. Ahead, the road stretched into darkness. But for her, it was the first step toward freedom. The woman walked with weak steps, yet her heart beat fast. Her mind swirled with fear. What if this was another trick? What if he would claim her later, use her trust, break her again? But his hand was steady, never forcing, never cruel. She had lived through cages and chains. Yet this silence, this strange safety, felt more frightening than pain, because it made her hope, and hope was dangerous. The human led her to a quiet shelter, a place hidden from the noise of the market. He gave her water, simple bread, a blanket. She sat in silence, staring at him, unsure. Finally she spoke, her voice low. You pay so much, why? He looked at her with tired eyes, eyes of a man who had carried too much war. I could not watch, he said, not again. And in that moment, she realized he was not saving her out of pride. He was saving her because his soul refused to let cruelty win. Outside, the city buzzed with life. Merchants shouted, ships roared, soldiers marched. But in that small room, two beings from different worlds sat in fragile silence. One broken, one weary, and though no one knew it yet, this moment would change the course of history. For the woman marked as property would become a mother of heroes, and the human soldier would become the first to love across worlds. The night deepened, shadows thickened, and somewhere in the distance, the auctioneer laughed, counting his coins. He did not know that he had just lost far more than he had gained. Because the story was only beginning, the human's choice. The morning came slowly. Soft light creeping through the cracks of the shelter. The alien woman sat on the floor, her knees pulled close, her eyes never leaving the door. She had not slept, fear holding her body like iron chains. The human soldier moved quietly, preparing a small meal. Simple bread and warm water. He placed it near her, then stepped back, giving her space. She looked at the food, then at him, confusion heavy in her gaze. Why was he not forcing her? Why was he not taking what he wanted? For all her life she had known humans as warriors, conquerors, buyers at markets. But this one sat with calm silence, like he carried a weight greater than gold. The woman's hands trembled as she picked up the bread. Her lips touched it carefully, as though it might vanish. When she finished, she whispered in broken human words, "You no chain me?" The soldier shook his head slowly. "No chains," he said, his voice low but firm. "You are free." The words felt like thunder in her heart. Yet she did not believe. She had heard lies before. Sweet words that turned to blades, but his eyes were steady, and they carried no shadow of trickery. Outside, the city stirred. Merchants cried. Soldiers marched. Already, whispers spread through the markets. "The human bought her," one voice said. "He wasted a fortune," another mocked. But others spoke in darker tones. "No one crosses the auctioneers. No one breaks the market rules." The human's act was not only strange, it was dangerous. Enemies had already begun to mark his name. The soldier knew this, yet he did not turn back. He sat across from the woman, his face serious, his tone calm. "I cannot undo your past," he said, "but I will not let them own your future." The woman lowered her head, silent tears sliding down her face. She had forgotten what kindness felt like, and now it struck her like a wound deeper than chains. Hours passed, and for the first time in years, she rested. When she awoke, she found herself wrapped in a warm blanket. The soldier sat near the door, his back straight, his weapon ready. He had not slept, his eyes scanning the shadows outside. She realized then he was guarding her, not himself. He was protecting her from the very world she feared. Later that day, they walked through narrow alleys. The soldier kept his hood low, guiding her carefully. Crowds stared, some with anger, some with curiosity. The glowing auction mark still burned on her skin. It screamed to the world that she was property. The soldier noticed the stares, his jaw tightening. He removed his scarf and wrapped it gently around her arm. "Hiding the mark, until it heals," he said. She blinked at him, startled by the simple act of care. But not everyone looked away. In a corner, two men from the auction market whispered to each other. "That is the one muttered. "The human who stole their prize," the other sneered. They watched, planning, for no one defies the traders without paying a price. As night fell again, the soldier led her outside the city walls. The sky stretched wide, stars scattered like silver dust. She stopped, staring at the heavens, her breath trembling. For years she had seen nothing but cages, walls, and markets. Now the open sky felt too vast, too unreal. The soldier noticed her awe, his lips curving into the faintest smile. "This is freedom," he said. She turned toward him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Why? Why you do this?" She asked again. His face darkened with memory. "I have seen too much war," he whispered. "I have seen too many sold, too many broken, and I could not stand by." Her heart stirred. Confused and frightened, for the first time she wanted to believe. But belief was dangerous. Trust could kill. Still, when she walked beside him, her steps were lighter than before. The fear inside her had not vanished, but a seed of hope had taken root, far behind them, in the city. The auctioneer sat with his guards, his face twisted with rage. "No one cheats the market," he growled. "No human, no soldier. No fool will shame me." He slammed his hand on the table, coins scattering. "Find him. Find the woman. Bring them back alive." The guards bowed and left, their orders clear. The hunt had begun. The soldier did not know yet that his choice had set fire to more than his own fate. The woman did not know yet that her life would no longer belong to pain. And the galaxy did not know yet that a single act of kindness was about to break centuries of chains. Under the starlit sky, the human soldier and the marked alien woman walked into the unknown. Each step heavy with danger, each breath heavy with doubt. But somewhere deep within them, both began to feel the same truth. Their lives were no longer separate, and this journey had only just begun. The bond beyond species, the road stretched far into the wastelands, dust rising with every step they took. The alien woman walked beside the human soldier, her pace unsteady but stronger than before. Each mile took her further from the chains of the market, but also deeper into uncertainty. She kept glancing at him, searching for the trap, waiting for the mask to fall. Why would a human risk everything for her? A stranger marked for sale. Her heart told her to be careful, but a quiet voice inside whispered that maybe, just maybe, he was different. As the sun set, they reached an old outpost, broken walls and half-buried metal left from forgotten wars. The soldier lit a small fire, his hands steady, his eyes always scanning the horizon. The woman sat across from him, hugging her knees, her glowing auction mark hidden under his scarf. The flames lit her face, showing the scars of years in captivity. He noticed, but he did not stare. He only offered her a flask of water. She hesitated, then drank, the cool taste calming her fear. Silence stretched between them, heavy yet fragile. Finally she spoke, her voice low and trembling. "You fight war?" The soldier nodded slowly, his eyes dark with memory. "Yes, I fought," he answered. She tilted her head, her silver-lined skin catching the firelight. "Win?" she asked, almost childlike. He gave a bitter smile, shaking his head. "No one wins a war," he said quietly. His words carried a weight she could not fully understand, but she felt the pain behind them. The fire crackled, and for the first time, she dared to ask the question that had been burning inside her. "Why me?" The soldier looked at her, his gaze firm yet gentle. "Because you still had hope in your eyes," he said. She frowned, not believing. "Hope? No, I lost hope long ago." But he shook his head. "When they called your number, you did not beg. You did not scream, you only stood, even if you were afraid. That is not weakness," he said. "That is strength." Her chest tightened, tears forming in her eyes. No one had ever called her strong. No one had ever seen her as more than property. His words were strange, dangerous, but they lit something inside her that she thought was dead. For the first time in years, she felt like she was more than a mark, more than a number that night. She dreamed of her home, a place long lost, fields of glowing grass, a sky painted with twin moons, voices of her people calling her name. She woke with tears in her eyes, and to her surprise, the soldier was awake too. Watching the stars in silence, he did not ask about her dream, but she found herself whispering, "My people." "Gone." He turned to her, his face still, his voice low. "Then we will build something new." The words shocked her. So simple, so impossible, yet spoken as if they were truth. Days turned into weeks as they traveled further. The soldier taught her how to walk unnoticed, how to hide from patrols, how to sense danger. She, in return, taught him words from her lost tongue, strange songs of her people. Their bond grew, not through command, but through sharing, through silence, through survival. Each night the fire between them burned not just for warmth, but for trust. But the galaxy was not blind. The auctioneer's men searched every city, every outpost, spreading word and threats. "Find the woman with the silver lines, find the human who bought her," they ordered. Some turned away in fear, others whispered greedily. The bounty on their heads grew. The danger followed them like a shadow one evening. As they rested in the ruins of a broken temple, they heard voices outside. The soldier pulled her close, his hand ready on his weapon. Through the cracks in the wall, they saw figures moving, mercenaries. Armed and hungry, the woman's heart pounded, fear clawing at her chest. But when she looked at the soldier, he was calm, his eyes cold with focus. He whispered, "Stay behind me." And in that moment, she realized something. He was not protecting her because she was weak. He was protecting her because, to him, she mattered. The mercenaries passed, their laughter fading into the distance. The soldier lowered his weapon, his hand trembling only slightly. The woman touched his arm. The first time she had ever dared to reach for him. "Why risk life for me?" she asked again, her voice stronger. He looked at her hand, then at her face. "Because no one else would," he said. And though the words were simple, they felt heavier than stone. That night, as the fire burned low, she sat beside him instead of across. She did not speak, he did not speak, but the silence between them was no longer cold. It was the silence of two souls beginning to trust, beginning to see, and though danger grew with every step, something new was being born. A bond that crossed worlds, a bond beyond species, one that neither chains nor markets could ever break. Asterisk a new family, the seasons turned as quietly as the wind across the wastelands. The soldier and the alien woman found a hidden valley far from the trade routes. Green hills rose like shields, and a river ran clear through the center. For the first time, the woman felt the earth beneath her feet that was not stained with blood or chains. The soldier built a small shelter with his own hands. Stone by stone, wood by wood. He did not call it a house. He called it a refuge, and in this quiet place, something new began to grow. The woman carried a secret in her heart, a secret born of nights shared with the soldier. She was with child, and though fear filled her at first, there was also wonder. Could a child born of two worlds even survive? Would the galaxy ever allow such a life? When she told him, her voice trembling, she expected rejection, anger, regret, but the soldier's eyes softened, his hands steady as he held her shoulders. "Then we will raise them," he said. Simple and certain. She broke down in tears, because for the first time, someone promised her a future. Months passed, and the valley echoed with new sounds. The cry of a newborn, small and fragile, yet alive with fire. The woman held the child close, her silver-lined skin glowing in the firelight. The soldier stood near, his face unshaken, though his hands trembled as he touched his child for the first time. The baby's skin was soft, marked faintly with both human warmth and alien light. The galaxy outside would call the child unnatural, cursed, unwanted, but in this valley, the baby was a miracle, a promise that two broken worlds could join. Years turned, and one child became two, then three. The small shelter grew into a home, its walls carrying the laughter of little voices. The woman sang lullabies of her lost people, soft songs that made the stars seem closer. The soldier taught his children to walk, to run, to stand tall even when the world would push them down. Each day was a battle, but each day was also a victory, because they were not supposed to exist. Yet here they were, alive and growing strong. But peace is fragile, and the galaxy does not forget. Whispers of the human and the alien woman reached nearby towns. Travelers spoke of children who were neither one nor the other. Some called them blessed, others called them abominations. Merchants muttered in fear, soldiers frowned with suspicion. The auctioneer's shadow still stretched long, his men still searching. And now there was more at stake, not just two fugitives, but a family one evening. The soldier returned from hunting with a heavy look on his face. The woman noticed at once, her heart tightening. "What is it?" she asked, her voice steady though her hands shook. He placed his bow down and spoke in a low voice. "They know," he said. "They know we are here." The children played nearby, laughing, unaware of the storm that was coming. The woman clutched them close, fear rising. But the soldier's eyes burned with determination. "We will not run again," he said. Not this time, that night. After the children had fallen asleep, the woman sat by the fire with him. Her voice was soft, filled with both love and dread. They will never stop. They will always chase, because of me. Because of what we are. The soldier shook his head, his hand covering hers. No, he said. Because of what we will become. She searched his face, wondering how one man could hold such endless resolve. He had given her more than freedom. He had given her a family. And now he was ready to fight the galaxy itself to protect it. The children grew fast, their minds sharp, their bodies strong one day. The eldest asked his father, "Why do people hate us?" The soldier paused, his heart heavy, but he did not hide the truth. Because they fear what they do not understand, he said. The boy frowned, but his mother placed her hand on his shoulder. And fear can be changed, she whispered. The child looked at both of them, and in his eyes burned a spark of courage. A spark that would one day become a fire. In the quiet valley, the family stood together. Different blood, different worlds, yet bound by love stronger than iron. They knew the day would come when peace would shatter, when enemies would arrive, but they also knew this, whatever came. They would face it not as captives, not as fugitives, but as a family. And a family born of defiance carries a power the galaxy had never seen before. Hatred from the galaxy, the valley that once felt hidden no longer carried silence. Rumors had spread faster than the river's current, whispers riding on every traveler's tongue. Stories of a human soldier who lived with a marked alien woman, and children born of two worlds. Some called it a curse, some called it a crime, and others feared it as a sign of rebellion. In nearby towns, the talk grew louder, sharper, poisoned with anger. The market was cheated, one merchant spat. The woman was stolen. Her children are mistakes. Such children will bring ruin. Another growled. If they live, the old order will fall. The soldier knew the walls of their valley could not keep hatred away forever. He stood watch each night, his hand always close to his blade. The woman lay awake beside the children, her heart heavy with fear. She had lived through cruelty before, but now it was not only her life at stake. Now she carried the weight of her family, their fragile hope, their fragile future one day. Strangers came to the valley. They carried torches, their faces hidden, their voices filled with scorn. "Come out, human," they shouted. "Show us the slave you hide. Show us the creatures you call children." The soldier stepped forward, his stance strong, his eyes unshaken. "This is no slave," he declared, his voice echoing across the rocks. "This is my wife, and these are my children, and you will not touch them." The crowd roared with laughter, some with rage. "A wife?" One mocked, "She is nothing but property, children." Another spat, "They are monsters, neither one thing nor the other." The woman clutched her children close, her heart racing. She wanted to run, but the soldier's presence held her still. His calm was like iron, his defiance like fire. And for the first time, she realized he would rather die than let harm reach them. The mob hurled stones, their hatred sharp as knives. But the soldier raised his shield, his body a wall. The children watched with wide eyes, fear etched into their young hearts. Yet even in fear, they saw their father's courage, and it planted a seed inside them. Days turned to weeks, and the hostility grew stronger. Shops in nearby towns refused to trade with them. Soldiers followed their trail. Even those who had once stayed silent now spoke with venom. "They must be destroyed," voices whispered in the dark. "The human has broken the law of blood, and the woman has broken the chain of silence." The auctioneer's agent spread lies, twisting the story further. He had lost gold, but worse, he had lost control. And nothing angered a master more than a slave who refused to stay broken. The children began to notice the difference. When they played near villages, other children threw mud and insults. When they laughed, strangers glared. When they sang, the world called them cursed. The eldest asked his mother, his voice trembling, "Why do they hate us for being alive?" She held him close, tears in her eyes. "Because they fear what they do not understand," she said, echoing her husband's words. "But remember this, What they fear is what will one day make you strong. The soldier knew they could not hide forever, so he began to teach his children more. Not only how to read, not only how to run, but how to stand, how to fight, how to hold their heads high even when the galaxy spat on them. You are not mistakes, he told them, his voice firm. You are proof that love is stronger than chains, and no voice, no blade. No market can take that away. The children listened, their hearts burning with new fire. They no longer only feared the hatred outside. They began to dream of a time when that hatred would bow before them. But hatred does not die quietly. One night, when the stars were hidden by storm clouds, flames erupted at the edge of the valley. The mob had returned, larger, louder, armed with more than stones this time. They carried blades, ropes, and fire. The soldier stepped outside, his shield raised, his sword drawn. The woman stood behind him, holding her children close, her body trembling but her eyes unbroken. The voices of the mob thundered, "Give them to us, or burn with them." The soldier's heart pounded, but his voice was steady. "You will not have them," he said. "Not while I breathe." The crowd surged forward, fire lighting the night. The children screamed, the woman wept. But the soldier did not move. He stood like a wall of iron, one man against many. And though his arms shook, his will did not, because in his heart he knew love was worth fighting for. Even against the galaxy itself, the storm raged through the night. But something unspoken shifted in that battle. The mob saw not weakness but unyielding defiance. The children saw not fear, but the true shape of courage, and the woman, once marked with numbers of slavery, saw herself not as property, but as a mother, a wife, a warrior in her own way. The hatred of the galaxy had found them, but so had their strength. And though the fire threatened to consume them, a new fire burned brighter in their hearts, a fire that no storm could put out. Asterisk. The children's strength. The night of fire left scars across the valley, ash drifted in the air, and the smell of smoke lingered for days. The family had survived, but nothing was the same. The children, once filled with laughter and innocence, now carried a new fire in their eyes. They had seen their father stand against a mob. They had seen their mother hold them like a shield. And something inside them had awakened. The eldest child, taller now, trained beside his father each morning. His arms ached, his legs shook, but he did not stop. The soldier watched in silence, correcting his stance, showing him how to wield a blade. "Strength is not in the arm," the father said. "It is in the will." The boy nodded, sweat running down his face, his young heart burning with determination. The second child, quiet and sharp-eyed, learned not with weapons but with thought. She sat by her mother, listening to the old songs of a lost people. She studied maps her father drew. She watched the skies. She learned the patterns of the stars. Her mind grew sharp as steel, her voice calm as the river. "Every battle is not fought with blades," she whispered once. "Some are fought with wisdom." The soldier and the woman exchanged glances, knowing their children were shaping themselves into something greater. The youngest, still small but fearless, followed both brother and sister. He carried sticks as if they were swords, shouted with pride as if he led armies. He tripped, he stumbled, but each fall made him rise stronger. When his mother asked why he never stopped, he smiled with simple words. Because father does not stop. Seasons changed, and the children grew. They were no longer shadows hiding behind their parents. They were voices, they were movement, they were fire. The mob that once came to burn their home returned again and again, but each time, they found the family stronger, more unbroken. The soldier no longer fought alone. His eldest son stood at his side. The daughter planned their defenses, setting traps and warning of danger before it arrived. The youngest carried messages, quick as wind, fearless as dawn. The galaxy beyond their valley began to whisper once more. But this time, the whispers were different. "Have you heard?" A merchant said. "The half-blood children grow like warriors. They say the cursed ones are clever, sharper than any human, braver than any alien," another added. Some whispered with fear, others with envy. The auctioneer, still burning with rage, slammed his fists and sent more hunters. But with each failed attempt, his power weakened, because stories of the children's strength spread faster than his threats. One night, when the stars burned bright, the eldest child asked his father, "Will they ever stop hating us?" The soldier looked into the fire, his face carved with years of war. "No," he said softly, "but they may learn to respect you," the daughter, sitting nearby, added in her calm voice, "and respect is stronger than fear." The youngest, clutching his wooden sword, shouted with pride, "Then we will make them respect us." Their parents smiled, hearts heavy yet proud, because the children were no longer simply surviving. They were beginning to lead. Soon, the valley could not contain their strength. The children began to venture farther, into towns and villages. At first they were met with silence, cold stares, whispers behind their backs. But when raiders attacked a caravan, it was the eldest who stood and fought them back. When disease struck a small village, it was the daughter who brought herbs and healing words. When a child was lost in the forest, it was the youngest who found him and carried him home. Slowly, grudgingly, the people began to see. These children were not monsters, not curses, but protectors, and protectors earn loyalty. The auctioneer raged louder. "How dare they?" he roared. "How dare those creatures be seen as saviors?" He sent assassins, he sent spies, but each one failed, because the children were no longer prey. They were hunters of their own fate, and every attempt only strengthened their legend. The woman, once trembling in chains, now stood taller. She watched her children grow with pride, tears shining in her eyes. "You are everything they said you could not be," she whispered. The soldier, weary but strong, placed his hand on her shoulder. "We are everything they feared we would become," he said. The galaxy outside was still cruel, still filled with hatred, but in the quiet valley, a fire burned that no storm could put out. The children of two worlds had risen, not in shame, but in strength. And soon, that strength would not be contained to one valley. Soon, the galaxy itself would feel their presence, and the chains of the past would tremble. Legacy of love. The years passed, and the valley was no longer just a hiding place. It had become a symbol, a story whispered across the stars. Merchants spoke of the soldier and the alien woman who raised children born of two worlds. Travelers told of the sons and daughters who defended villages, who healed the sick, who fought raiders. What once was hatred began to turn into something heavier, something the galaxy could not ignore. The auctioneer, old and bitter, still raged in his halls. He had spent fortunes trying to hunt them, trying to erase their story, but each failure only fed the legend. He died with anger in his heart, his name fading into dust, while the names of those he hated grew brighter with every passing season. The children became adults, tall and strong, their voices carrying both the fire of their father and the calm wisdom of their mother. They walked the markets without fear now, no longer hiding their silver-lined skin or their mixed blood. When insults were thrown, they stood tall. When weapons were drawn, they defended the weak, and slowly, enemies began to bow their heads, for it is hard to hate what saves your life. The woman, once trembling in chains, now stood proud. She looked at her children and saw not curses, not mistakes, but miracles. Her silver-lined skin glowed in the sun as she spoke to those who once despised her. "You marked me with numbers," she said, "but love has marked me with something stronger." Her words spread like wind, carried on the tongues of many, and people began to see her not as property, but as a mother of hope. The soldier, his hair now touched with gray, still trained his children, still guarded his home, but his heart was lighter, because he knew he had not only defied the galaxy, he had changed it, piece by piece. Once, he was just a man who could not walk away from cruelty. Now, he was remembered as the man who proved love could break chains. And even when his body grew weary, his spirit stood tall. The eldest son became a warrior who defended not just the valley, but the lands beyond. Villages called for him when raiders threatened, and armies feared his presence. The daughter became a voice of wisdom, guiding leaders with calm words. Her mind saw paths where others only saw walls. The youngest, once a fearless child, grew into a leader of the lost. He gathered orphans, the broken, the forgotten, and gave them a family, together. They were not only survivors, they were the future. The galaxy, still cruel in many corners, began to change. Laws were questioned, markets weakened, chains loosened, because wherever the children of two worlds walked, people saw a truth they could not unsee. That love was stronger than ownership, that unity was stronger than hate, and that the future could not be stopped. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the sky, the family stood together on the hill above their valley. The soldier placed his hand on his wife's. Their fingers entwined. The children stood beside them. Strong and proud, below, villagers gathered, not to curse, not to mock, but to honor. They lit fires in respect. They sang songs of gratitude. The valley that once held only silence now held the voices of many. The woman looked at her husband, tears shining in her eyes. "Do you see?" she whispered. "They no longer see us as broken." He smiled, his face weathered but bright. "They see us as we always were," he said. A family. That night, the stars burned brighter than ever. And in those stars, their story was carried. Not of chains, not of auctions, not of hatred, but of love that defied the galaxy. A love that raised children who would change history. A love that turned shame into pride, pain into strength, and fear into hope. Generations later, when their names were told around fires on distant worlds, people no longer spoke of Lot 42, the alien woman marked with numbers. They spoke of the mother of heroes, the heart of two worlds. They no longer spoke of a reckless soldier who wasted gold. They spoke of the man who gave his life to love. And they spoke of their children, who stood when others bowed, who built bridges where there were walls. The galaxy remembered, not the cruelty of markets, not the chains of slavers, but the legacy of love. A legacy that began the moment one human chose to see more than a number, and one alien woman dared to believe in hope again.